about January or February, I think I saw the list of words for this year, and I looked it over and I thought, is there any of these that just really speak to me? And wonder popped out for me. It's always been a word that I love, been a word that's important to me in my whole life. And so I said, I really want to talk about wonder. So I signed up for that. And then a couple of months ago, I realized that wonder's a really big, important, hard word to talk about. So I spent it's been a great exercise to spend the last couple of months with that in mind and sort of observing and noticing about wonder in my own life and in sort of the world around us. So I'm happy to share this morning a little bit of my thinking about wonder. So I started with this great quote, look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. So the idea of wondering about is really important. And the other thing that strikes me about this, and the more I thought about wonder, this idea of looking up also feels really important. So I try to do meditation in the mornings, and I end my meditation with a phrase that's sort of a paraphrase of a John O'Donohue blessing, which is, with all that is eternal in me, I welcome the wonder of this day. So with that, I welcome all of you to think about wonder with me for a little while this morning. So this morning, I'd like to think of this as an invitation to wonder. I think wonder is something that we do naturally when we're kids, right? You just watch a little kid do something, they're just always, their eyes are really big, and they're always very excited. And then as we get older and we get busier and we get into jobs and families and responsibilities, we sort of forget that kind of wide-eyed appreciation that I would call wonder that happens when we're little. So I like this. It's important to surround yourself with good people, interesting people, young ideas. Go places, learn new stuff. Look at the world with wonder. Don't be tired about it. That's also a good reminder. It's a good reminder for me. I tend to start looking down and getting tired about it, and it's good to be reminded to look up and to remember the wonder. So we're going to talk about wonder in 3 different ways this morning. The first one is wonder as something that happens to us. And I tell you, I spent some time thinking about, is it wonder that happens to us or wonder that happens for us? And I decided it's really wonder that happens to us because it's always there. It's just a matter of whether or not we see it. There's an element of surprise to it. So it's not that it's just laying there waiting to expose itself for us. It's waiting to expose ourselves to us when we're willing to see it. So wonder that happens to us. Wonder as something that we can actually do. One of the things that's really cool about this word is that it's a noun and a verb. We're just talking about words. And is that really a noun? Is that really a verb about a different word? But this word is really a noun and a verb. We have the 7 wonders of the world, very real things, and we can wonder about things on our own. So wonder as something that we can actively do. And then the last one is wonder as a powerful tool in a complex world. We all know that the world is more and more complex, more and more challenging, lots of things happening, some faster than we would like and some slower than we would like, but it's very complex. The things that happen here have ripple effects that we can't determine. And so the idea of wondering in a world that's complex is an important and helpful tool, I think, as we think about this. So let's start with wonder as something that happens to us. So when we're open, when we're looking up, wonder is one of those things that happens to us. So this is Lake Michigan, about 2 days ago. You sort of laugh a little, you sort of like, everybody smiles and perks up, right? If you were standing right here taking this picture, just feel that feeling for a second, right? It's the kind of thing that takes your breath away. It's the kind of thing that gives you a sense of the expansiveness of so much that we're not in charge of, so much that happens to us and that's available if we stop and look. And it's sort of a big reminder, right? There are lots of reminders all the time. These kinds of things are the big reminders of how much wonder can happen to us when we are open to seeing it. The happiness of the bee and the dolphins is to exist. For man, it is to know that and to wonder at it. So we have that capacity for wonder that doesn't come to all the other creatures, right? It's kind of our job in a way because we have that capacity to be in awe of, to wonder at, to have it happen to us, that we feel that grand expansiveness about the world. So I've had the experience over the last couple of days for sort of a very big and profound experience of wonder when I took my daughter, my only biological child, to her college orientation. So I will tell you that this is what she looked like when she was about 2 weeks old. Her name is Grace. And this was Grace at 2 weeks old, so she was about, this big, I guess. And that's sort of, it was the wonder of everything with her. Everything was new, she's this tiny baby, even just making a baby. A friend of mine said that having a baby is like building a skyscraper with 2 bricks. There's all of this stuff that happens that you have no idea how it happens. And suddenly there's a human person, a little baby there. And then, over a period of years and lots of experiences, you find yourself watching her be at home in a new home as a grown-up person. And it's a very vast experience of wonder to just acknowledge, sort of for all of us, how that time passes and how we go from little teeny to grown-up to older, and all of the things that happen to us along the way, some of which we're happy about, some of which we're not, some of which we don't really understand until later. It's all about wonder and the wonder of that journey as humans. So one of the things that I really like about wonder is that it's multi-directional. It is past, present, and future. It's forward and backward and side to side. There's nothing about it that's time limited. Like that lake, there's no way that time sort of has any measured effect on that lake. It's so vast. Past, present, future, forward, backward, side to side. All the different directions that wonder gives us access to in ways different than lots of other ways that we can be or ways that we can show up. Okay. So, a little bit about wonder, how wonder happens to us. I'm going to give you just a second to think about the when, where, or in what experiences does wonder happen to you. Okay? Just take a minute. Sometimes it's poetry, art, plays, music, places, relationships, experiences, when wonder happens to you. All right, now I'm going to ask you, the next question is, how might you get more of this in your life, right? How might that be a bigger part of your life when you think about what those things are? I'm going to give you just a minute to actually turn to the person next to you or behind you and share a little bit about where, when wonder happens to you and how you might be able to get a little more of that in your lives. All right? So I'm going to give you some time. I'll ring the bell in a couple of minutes. Okay, I am going to do the put you on the spot and ask a couple of people to share what you talked about. When does wonder happen to you? Where does wonder happen to you? Yeah.
Whenever you stop to appreciate the little things in life, like we were talking about paintings in an art museum, and you know, the person who just walked by that and not thinking of it, but you sit down and take attention to sort of those things, and really appreciate it.
Nice, great. So noticing the little things. Paintings in a museum, walking by, you just keep walking by, or you can stop and really notice and take in sort of all of the things about that painting and how it makes you feel. Yeah, that's great. Good. What else? A couple other things. So one of the things we can do is see more art. way
Or
to
even
bring
to
more wonder.
appreciate the simple things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a piece of art, but thinking about even like the grains of that wood. It's something that everyone here has walked by, but if you take the time to really look, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be something we go out and do. Could be just the grain of wood and the grain in the wood in this room that we've all walked by and actually stopping to appreciate it. I appreciate all the work that Alex and Adam have done to make this space. Like that's a wonder to me. Yes, exactly. Great. So really noticing those small things, looking up and noticing those small things that are around us that are really beautiful, that can bring that sense of wonder. Good. What else?
Being outside.
Being outside.
Nature. It's just like if I could begin every morning by walking out on the deck and just looking at the sky and remembering that the sky is more important than the ceiling.
Nice. Remembering that the sky is more important than the ceiling. Being out in nature and walking outside and looking up in the morning and just being reminded of that. Kind of carry that through the whole day then. You start to see some of those things. Yeah, nice. And one more. Who else? Something about wonder and when wonder happens to you. Bryce?
I shared, so now that I'm thinking about it, I like finding answers to questions. I wondered how recycling worked. I wondered that for 5 years. Never actually sought an answer, and then yesterday I tried it and I'm like, oh good, that was easy, I have an answer. But now that I think about that, on the other hand, not finding an answer, you've heard is wonder just as much for me. I tend to interrogate in conversation and ask a lot of questions and listen, but not finding the answers to those questions immediately actually helps me wonder even more. Like I wondered for 5 years how recycling worked, and the time was right. Now I know.
Right. So wondering how something works and then going and Googling it and YouTubing it and having the answer. But also realizing that sometimes not having the answer actually creates a lot more space. That's one of the things about wonder. I spend a lot of time in this process thinking about curiosity and wonder. And curiosity feels to me a little like a thing that I have to go get an answer to. It doesn't have to be, but it's a little more like that. I can go YouTube something I'm curious about, right? I can get that curiosity satisfied. I don't think wonder actually gets satisfied the way curiosity does. Wonder happens, and wonder keeps creating that space over and over rather than sort of finding the answer. And so there will be the next thing that you wonder about now that you have that, right? Good, great, good. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, Julia?
One of the things that I was thinking about is nature over time and rediscovered things. Because I grew up in New England, but I lived in Florida for a long time, and now living here, seeing the seasons and how quickly they happen, and how time passes and nature changes all around me, and kind of rediscovering it.
So time in nature, having lived in New England and then in Florida and seeing the seasons anew and recognizing how the sort of the pace of time changes when we're in the seasons and rediscovering. I think wonder is a great thing for rediscovering something and thinking about it in new ways. Great, good. So ways that we can get more of that, right? Notice the small things, go out in the morning. Any time of day, I think it's about that looking up piece, right? At the sky, at the trees, at nature, thinking about time, long time, short time, how time is passing, and the ways that we're marking that, all really important ways. Think about what we're curious about, what we wonder about. Those are ways we can bring more wonder into our lives. Great, okay. So that's when, where, and what experiences wonder happens to us. One of them for me too is we have friends who have a house in the mountains, and every morning, so there's this beautiful vista out in front of the house, and every morning when I come from the back of the house to the front of the house and those mountains are there, it takes my breath away. Literally, I go, I have that gasp feeling and I get those tingles all over. That's a big moment for me when it happens. So just paying attention to that and making sure we have space for it. Great. Okay, the second, wonder as something we can actively do, right? Bryce talked about this a little bit, like I'm wondering about something. But I'm even going to expand that a little bit. So, and talk a little about that distinction between wonder and curiosity. Again, curiosity feels to me like an amazing word. I love curiosity and being curious, but it feels a little more linear. Like I can go get an answer to something that I'm curious about. Wonder actually invites sort of what we don't know into the equation in a different way. So I think you can't have a talk about wonder without some reference to Alice in Wonderland, right? And so like it just felt like a missing if I didn't have something about Alice in Wonderland. And so I think it's just important to notice the wondering of the rabbit hole, right? Alice went down the rabbit hole because she was wondering about the white rabbit and his watch. And so, and the wondering of looking at that horizon in that lake, or imagining the horizon for sailors who set off into the world to a place where on the map, it literally said there'd be monsters here. Like the wonder that would cause you to actually go find that out is pretty extraordinary. I grew up in Nebraska, and my family were pioneers who came across Nebraska in a covered wagon. That's some wonder. It's a little crazy and a lot of wonder. And so there's a lot that wonder propels, right? So actively thinking about using wonder as a way to propel us, a way to sort of cause us to take that more expansive view. So it may be that our cosmic curiosity is a genetically encoded force that we illuminate when we look up and wonder. So sort of the connection between curiosity and wonder, and again that idea of looking up and a way of illuminating that sort of thing that we do that set us out in those ships that took Alice down the rabbit hole, that took my ancestors across Nebraska in the freezing cold bleak winter, to settle in an entirely new place. It's that cosmic curiosity. It's bigger than a lot of the things that we think about. So it's also very useful. So it's useful in a day-to-day kind of way, like we often talk about, right? I wonder if it's going to rain today. I wonder about this. I wonder about that. Cool. But there's also sort of an intentional wondering. So this is the idea of sort of using wonder more intentionally. So I sent an email yesterday to some people, and I spent literally 15 minutes worrying that it was not the right email and not to the right people, and that I really didn't say the right thing. And I know I'm up here speaking, y'all are like, she's got it all together. Not so. And so I'm like literally spent 15 minutes. Like gosh, now what? And I mean, the email was sent. There's nothing I can do about it now. And so now I'm just in like this worry spin, which does no good at all. And so then I was like working on my talk about wonder. I was like, I wonder if wonder could be useful here. And so then I reframed it, and I thought, I wonder what their response will be to that. Sort of was like, oh, yeah, there it is. That's all. Wonder is not actually a question. I started writing things down, and I kept putting question marks at the end of them. I wonder if it will rain today. Like, it's actually not a question. Like, my voice goes down at the end of it. It's a statement. I wonder if it will rain today. How does recycling work? Is a question. I wonder if it will rain today. I wonder what their response will be. Is a statement. Because wonder is actually a state of being. It's not a thing that we have to go find out or do. It's a thing that we are. It's a way that we show up into a space in a state of wonder. So I wonder how they will respond to that. It's just like a place to be about it. Without worrying, without trying to undo it or rewind it or think about it or somehow fix it. The other thing it does is it allows for all of the things that are happening that I am not in control of. And I will tell you that this is not an easy thing for me, because I like to control a lot of things. You can ask my family. I like to control a lot of things. So this is not an easy thing for me, but wonder is a great tool for it. I wonder how they'll respond. Out of my hands, but I can be in this state of wonder. So that was also a really funny thing, was like the punctuation of wonder. It actually ends with a period, not with a question mark. So it's useful in small ways, right? It's useful in little ways around like sending an email, or did I do that right, or I wonder if it'll rain today. Even my sort of thing that I do in the morning around I welcome the wonder of this day, it just allows that space for the things that I don't know to happen, and for me to hopefully have the wherewithal to notice them. So it's also helpful with really big things. So in 2013, my dad had an aneurysm and died suddenly. So he lived for about 24 hours in a conscious state, and we all got to see him. This is his hand at the hospital before he died. And so it was such a moment of profound wonder. I think one of the important things about wonder is that it's not always the beautiful and the joyful. Wonder is available to us in the biggest heartbreak and the biggest sadness. There's always that wonder that can happen in that space. So my sort of comforting phrase for when my dad died was, I wonder what this has set in motion. It was clear to me that my world was never going to be the same. A lot of us were going to have big impact from this happening. And so wondering what it would set in motion for my family, for my mom, for me, was a way to just be in a space that wasn't just heartbreak. It wasn't just fear and worry. It was a way to be in the space of, there's all of this stuff happening that I can't see and that I'm not in charge of. I wonder what that will create. And it allows us to have that noticing in a different way. So again, being in a state of wonder, sort of an interesting way to think about how we approach things, big and small. So it's something we can actively do. So wonder is an opening for understanding. It's an invitation to hopeful anticipation. So it's not that I'm going to make this happen. It's not that I can control it. It's just a hopeful anticipation for what might be, given all the things that I don't know. And it is a call to a more expansive point of view. Sharon said the sky is more important than the ceiling. It is sort of taking the sky perspective as opposed to the ceiling perspective when we look at things both big and small. Also, an active place we can be when we're in conflict. So, I was just talking to some people, it's a way that we can expand our point of view. So, thinking about what is something that you wonder about. So I know there's a lot of talk right now about wondering about how that person could have voted for that person. It's a lot of wondering about that. Except our language tends to be, I don't understand how they could think that that's a good idea. I don't understand how that person could have done that. I don't understand how all of these things that are very sort of closed about that, right? That is not a state of wonder. It's very much a state of judgment, not a state of understanding or hopeful anticipation. It's very much a state of frustration, and we're all living in a lot of those states in a lot of ways, big and small right now. So I think the invitation to wonder is also an invitation to this more expansive view of each other and how we are in the world. So I'm going to give you a second to think about something that you wonder about. Could be something like that, could be something really small, could be something really big. And then how might this idea of intentional wondering give you a more expansive point of view? For example, I wonder what in his experience caused him to think that's a good idea. I wonder what happened to her that she is so closed now. As opposed to, she's horrible and I can't deal with her. Oh, just saying, maybe we've been there a few times. So how can we choose a different point of view and add that idea of that intentional wondering to give us that bigger space, that possibility for a different kind of perspective? So again, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. You can talk to the same people or turn and sort of talk to some different people if you're in a spot where you can do that. Something that you wonder about, and how might you sort of shift that into this intentional wondering and be in that state of hopeful anticipation and understanding as opposed to judgment, which is where we spend a lot of our time. Talk amongst yourselves. very hopeful that there was all of that talk about intentional wondering, and that maybe we can go out and do that in a way that helps move things in good directions. So, what were some things that you wonder about, or some intentional wondering that you might try now? Turn on my microphone. There we go. Some intentional wondering. Yes, here we go.
One thing I mentioned is like you were talking, I said instead of worrying, I can turn it into wonder, and that'll like help my perspective. Like,
Yes, so sort of trading worry from wonder and helping your perspective. Absolutely. Great, that's what I did yesterday with that email. Good, what else? Other things that came up about intentional wondering. Jelena?
I sort of felt like intentional wondering invites compassion. So that instead of looking at things and closing down to like a pinpoint of, oh, you're driving me crazy, it's more like, well, why is that happening? Or why is that? So it's like that herbal essence commercial. So on and so on and so on and so on. So that's sort of like, I have a hard time with this. That's what I was thinking.
So it opens up for compassion. Instead of sort of closing down to like a little tiny judgment about something, it opens you up to some bigger ideas and some wondering about what's really going on. Yeah, great. Good. What else? Yeah.
And right on Loren's point, the first thing I thought of was what will my relationships with my siblings be with my mom, my in-laws, and because I've been going, I need to set up and decide what I'm doing, and it feels very constricting, and I need to the point of like, it doesn't feel good. When I think about that, I feel like I should do it, but when I go, I wonder what's going to happen, all of a sudden, like, everything is possible, and it's really much more just go.
We'll see. Yeah. Great. So Lindsay talked about what will happen with her relationship with her siblings when her mother dies, and sort of trying to set things up to make something specific happen, and how constricting that is. And if she just says like, I wonder what it'll be. It's like she can just let go. It's a whole different point of view and much more expansive and not so worrying. Yeah.
To Lindsay's point, I have a really wise friend who once said, when we get to that I don't know, typically we do this, I don't know, and we're absolutely bound by questions. Yeah, and she said, if we say, I don't know, we're creating this nest and all kinds of things can fall into it.
Yeah. So for you guys who didn't see that, Carol said a lot of times when we get to that place where we don't know, we go like this. I don't know. I just don't know. As opposed to sort of the idea of, I don't know, and creating sort of this big wide opening or a nest that things can fall into. It opens up all kinds of possibilities that frankly may be better than the road we were on, because we just couldn't imagine the possibilities that actually are there if we give them the space. Wonder might happen to us in that experience. Ken?
Tom and I talk about control. We're both list makers. And that's a double-edged sword. I mean, for me, if I do something that isn't on the list, I put it on the list so I can cross it off.
We make lists and then we put stuff we did on the list so we can cross it off. Who does that? Whoa, lots of us in the room. Ken, you just touched a nerve.
So the challenge we talked about was that idea of understanding that things are out of your control. And back in my business career, that scared the living daylights out of me. But now that I'm retired, I keep trying to train myself into that idea of it's okay to get up in the morning and ask the question, what will happen today? Rather than, here's what has to happen.
Nice. So the distinction between asking ourselves what has to happen today and what will happen today. And Ken has the vantage point of retirement to really think about that. But again, I would challenge us, for those of us who are still in a space where there are things we have to get done, to also just allow for what might happen. So rather than being so focused on our list, again, to the point of we get so looking down that we forget to look up and appreciate all of the things that are around us and that opportunity for wonder to happen to us. Great. Anybody else want to have another intentional wonder? in it. So possibility, the idea of sort of open arms and looking up as opposed to sort of closed and looking down. A really intentional asking what will happen, might happen. I wonder what will happen because I'm actually not in charge of it. Again, not an easy thing to manage, but we can try it out a little bit intentionally. Good. All right, so wonder as something we can intentionally do, a state that we can cultivate in lots of different ways. And our final way to think about wonder is a powerful tool in a complex world. So we talked about in all of that, how many things are happening that we're not in control of? How many possibilities are out there that we actually can't even imagine? And so if we start limiting ourselves to this one possibility, we've eliminated possibilities that we maybe didn't even see or know were possible. And so this idea of making so many more things possible. So complexity is sort of new in the level of complexity that we have in our time. So this is actually, weirdly, a cigarette rolling machine from the late 1700s. And it's a pretty simple machine. Like, we could look at this machine, eventually we could figure out how it works. If something broke, we would know how to fix it. We could look at it and say, yeah, that's broken, fix that piece and it'll work again. There aren't very many things in our world anymore that are that straightforward. This was really complex at the time, like huge and important and exciting. Now we're like, man, oh well. So I had a guy at my house to fix my washing machine a while ago, and it was great. He was kind of grumbly, he's got his computer iPad thing, you know, and he's like, washing machines used to have 5 parts. So I could come in and I knew which part was broken, or which part was out of place, and I'd fix the part or replace the part, and then the washing machine would work. Now I have to punch all these buttons on this computer. He was really unhappy about it. And it is that way, right? Like, it's not sort of, I can look at this and see what's going on. It's a lot more complex. We have things like MRIs and things that show us the insides of things in ways that we never even knew existed. We have quantum theory, and we understand what's happening under the surface in ways that we didn't used to. But it was always happening. We just didn't see it. So there's a thing that's called a Chladni plate. Has anyone ever heard of that? Chladni plate, Chladni. So actually, it's an experiment that they did a long time ago. Dan knows more about this. And it's a metal plate that they put sand on, or salt, and when you play a particular note, the sand actually makes patterns. Different patterns depending on the frequency of the note. And so I'm going to show you a little video that demonstrates that sort of in an even bigger way than just the plate. So everything that was happening there was happening because of the sound waves. Just imagine that. Imagine all the things that are happening around us that we can't see. Right? Such a great way to glimpse all the things that are happening that we can't see. I also think it's super cool. And if you keep watching it, there's this great thing that they do with fire. Fire actually moves with the sound, and they get into the fire. It's all very exciting. So it's a great thing to wonder about, to just watch and wonder about. I also wonder about the people who thought of it, and the people who made it happen. And what is it about them that has their brain think that way? I really wonder about that. And it is a wonder at the same time to me, because that's not how my brain works. And so it's a fascinating thing, but it is a glimpse into all of the things that are happening, all the possibilities that we don't see, that if we're open, we can begin to appreciate. So this is David Moranis, who's a journalist. I believe that life is chaotic, a jumble of accidents, ambitions, misconceptions, bold intentions, lazy happenstances, and unintended consequences. Yet I also believe that there are connections that illuminate our world, revealing its endless mystery and wonder. So again, all of those things that are underneath, that are happening without us doing anything, except making them visible, like they did in the video. So, like you can't have a talk about wonder without Alice in Wonderland, you can't can't have a talk about wonder without Wonder Woman. So gotta work Wonder Woman in because she's Wonder Woman, of course. And so there's a whole lot that we could explore about Wonder Woman. But I think one of the most important things about Wonder Woman in this context is her golden lasso. So we know about Wonder Woman's golden lasso. So Wonder Woman's golden lasso, when she wraps it around you, will cause you to tell the truth, whether you want to or not. You will tell her everything she asks you because you're wrapped in the golden lasso. And I think one of the important things about that is that it is really the truth, that there's so much that's happening underneath, so many possibilities that we can't imagine, that wonder is an opportunity and is an entry point to that truth that we often forget, or that we intentionally forget when we're trying to control things, or when we're trying to get things on our list done, or when we're not noticing the small things. We miss that really, really important truth about how much is happening that we can't see, and how much we need to allow space for that stuff to happen. Because it will go places and take us places that we can't imagine on our own. So wonder is a glimpse of what's just below, a sense of what's possible. It is an allowing for all that is that we cannot see. So there isn't anything about Lake Michigan that I have anything to do with. All I can do is wonder at it. So many things happening there that I can't see or control, and yet that wonder happens to me because of it. So wonder is something that happens to us when we're open. Wonder as something that we can actively do, inviting that wonder, intentionally wondering, being in a state of wonder. And wonder is a powerful tool in a complex world. Recognizing that there's so much happening and unfolding that we're not in charge of, that to be in a state of wonder allows for that. It gives us that hopeful anticipation of what has been set in motion and what might come of it. So this is an invitation to wonder in all of those ways, and in ways that you might know and think about too. Like I said, this has been an interesting couple of months for me to be in a space of really thinking about wonder. So the invitation is also just to notice. Notice when you're wondering, notice how you might wonder, notice what causes wonder for you. And a final quote, when we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible, we are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world. That is when and only when we come to it. And that is Maya Angelou in a brilliant moving poem called A Brave and Startling Truth. I recommend the whole thing to you if you want to have some wonder about thinking and people and our world. So, we are the wonder. It is ours to happen to us, it is ours to use, it is ours to think about, it is ours to welcome into our lives in a way that opens up possibilities. Thank you. It's been wonderful. Also, had to be said, I really appreciate all of you being here and interacting and engaging with this, what I think is a really important and interesting topic. So I am grateful to have been here to talk about it.